Some eyes don't blink, because they were never alive to begin with. This is the story of the watcher at the window. I never used to believe in the things you only hear whispered in hushed tones. Ghost stories passed around the dinner table, or warnings from elders you brushed off as superstition. But all of that changed one summer when my family and I stayed at my uncle's house in the countryside of El Salvador. It was supposed to be a calm visit. Simple days filled with home-cooked meals, warm air, and distant sounds of roosters and cicadas. My younger brother and I shared a room. He was about 8 at the time, small, timid, but always curious. Nothing about that place seemed off at first. It was just an old home like many others, with barred windows, tile floors, and a quiet presence. But then came the first night. My brother had gotten up to use the bathroom, and I barely noticed him leave the room. The hallway lights were dim, and the bathroom was at the far end of the corridor, past the back door that led outside. I remember rolling over, half asleep and thinking nothing of it. Minutes passed, then more. Still, no sign of him. It was my mom who eventually stirred, probably out of instinct. She noticed how long he'd been gone and got up to check. I heard her footsteps go down the hall, and then her voice calling his name. At first, he didn't respond, just murmuring. Not words, just low, uneasy sounds, like someone trying to speak through a dream. I sat up in bed, listening. My mom's voice grew sharper, worried. Then he finally said something, barely above a whisper. "He's watching me." Mom kept asking who, but he didn't answer. He was staring at the small bathroom window, frozen. His lips trembled. Through the window, he said again, his voice hollow, distant. She pulled him out of there and brought him back to the room. She held him tight and began to pray, quiet but steady. He sat beside her, shaking. Eventually, the color returned to his face and he fell asleep curled up next to her. We thought it might have been a nightmare, maybe a shadow from the trees, maybe an animal, maybe. But the second night came. He was asleep beside me when it happened again. I woke to him breathing fast, shallow, panicked. He wasn't crying, just staring. I followed his gaze toward the window. The glass pane was pushed open slightly for air, and beyond it, only darkness. But I swear to you, there was a shape, a silhouette unmoving, like someone standing just outside the house looking in. I leapt up and closed the window, pulling the curtains shut. He didn't say anything this time, just lay there stiff until finally, he drifted back into sleep. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. By the third night, I was done playing it off as a coincidence. I pushed the bed closer to the center of the room and made sure all the windows were closed. I told my brother I'd sleep beside him. Everything was quiet for hours. The silence outside was thick, almost unnatural. I must have drifted off because the next thing I remember was the bed shifting. I opened my eyes slowly. My brother was upright. Not sitting, upright. His torso rose unnaturally from the bed while his legs stayed flat. His eyes were wide open, but not blinking. It was like he was looking through me. And then, he grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, ice cold, and his mouth moved. But what came out wasn't Spanish. It wasn't even words I recognized. It was a deep, guttural language, murmured fast and low like a chant, a growl, or a curse. It didn't sound like my brother. I panicked and yelled for my parents. They came running into the room, and my mom started shouting his name, while my dad tried to pry his fingers off my wrist. My brother just kept murmuring, louder until his head jerked back, and he collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Still asleep, my mom dropped to her knees and began to pray loudly. My dad stood by the door, watching, confused and shaken. I held my wrist, staring at my brother, who now lay calmly as if nothing had happened. The next morning, we sat around the table quietly. My mom brought out coffee, but no one really drank it. My brother didn't remember much. Just said he had a dream about someone at the window again. He didn't know what he'd said, just remembered cold eyes. That was enough for all of us. We called one of our aunts, someone known in the family to be strong in prayer and faith. She came by with anointing oil, a Bible, and a stern look on her face. She didn't ask questions, she just said, "Something's not right in this house." She prayed over the house, room by room. She placed oil on the doors and windows, murmuring verses I hadn't heard since I was a child. When she got to our room, she stopped near the window and stood still for several minutes. Then she turned to us and said softly, "There was something here, something drawn to him, but it's gone, for now." That night was the first peaceful one in days. No shadows, no whispers, not one at the window. Still, I kept the curtains closed and the lights dim, just in case. Even now, years later, my brother doesn't like sleeping near windows. And sometimes, when I ask him if he remembers anything from those nights, he pauses and says, "Not really, just those eyes, watching."